Welcome to the Deep Dive. If you're joining us today, you're probably the kind of person who loves to peel back the layers of reality and just see what's actually operating underneath the surface.
Absolutely.
Today we have this incredibly dense, fascinating stack of sources for you. We're looking at a collection of translated lecture notes and audio transcripts, and they focus entirely on what the text calls the spiritual interpretation of the Book of Revelation.
Which is quite the undertaking.
Yeah, and let me tell you, it completely flips the script on everything you might think you know about this ancient text.
It really forces a massive paradigm shift. We're stepping entirely away from the mainstream literalist views that have, dominated cultural conversations for centuries.
Right, because when most of us think of the Book of Revelation, our minds immediately go to those Hollywood apocalyptic movies.
Oh yeah, the blockbusters.
Exactly. We picture literal fire raining from the sky, massive earthquakes, lakes of burning sulfur, physical destruction, just general end-of-the-world chaos.
The standard doomsday scenario.
But the mission for this deep dive is to unpack a completely different, highly psychological framework. These sources are heavily influenced by teachings referred to in the text as the Swedenborg apostle.
Right, which references Emanuel Swedenborg.
Yes, the 18th century scientist turned mystic who claimed to have experienced these profound spiritual visions. And in this specific framework, every terrifying monster, every shining city, every glowing jewel, it actually represents the internal psychological landscape of the human mind.
Now, before we plunge into the deep end here, I do want to set the stage for how we're approaching this material.
Good idea.
Our goal today isn't to endorse a specific religious view or tell you what to believe or preach. We are here to impartially explore an incredibly intricate historical system of thought.
We're just looking at the blueprints.
Exactly. Whether you're a theologian, a philosophy buff, or just a curious mind, this material offers a profoundly insightful lens on human nature. It forces you to look at how we process knowledge, how our egos build defenses, and what genuine self-awareness really demands of us.
Okay, let's unpack this. Starting with one of the most famous and frankly terrifying images in the entire book.
The lake of fire.
The lake of fire and the concept of the second death. Because according to these translated notes, the lake of fire is absolutely not a physical place of burning combustion.
Not all
There's
right.
no literal magma waiting for anyone.
To grasp what the text is actually doing, we have to decode the symbols. In this 18th century spiritual interpretation, fire is never a physical flame.
Right.
It represents the burning lusts, the greed, and the intense consuming desires that are born out of extreme self-love.
So we're talking about an ego that has essentially consumed the entire personality.
It's an ego that recognizes nothing outside of its own gratification. The text then adds brimstone or sulfur to the mix.
Which doesn't sound great either.
No, it symbolizes the suffocating, toxic desires that belong to evil. And then we have the lake itself. This isn't a geographical location.
Like a literal lake on a map.
Right. It's described as a receptacle or a mental state that is formed by a massive, stagnant accumulation of false knowledge. So when the text talks about someone being thrown into the lake of fire, it's describing a mind completely trapped in its own selfish delusions.
Wait, I have to stop you there.
Sure.
Because this raises a huge skeptical question for me, and probably for you listening right now. If the lake of fire is just a psychological state, and God isn't sitting on a throne throwing anyone into literal magma...
Doesn't that remove the stakes?
Exactly. Doesn't it completely remove all the stakes? Why should anyone care if it's all just in their head?
Well, that is the brilliant twist in this framework. The stakes are actually much higher and far more agonizing because they are inescapable.
So?
Consider the mechanics of how the Last Judgment works here. During this judgment, individuals are not read a list of their sins by a cosmic judge.
No giant scoreboard.
No scoreboard. Instead, they're simply exposed to the pure, unadulterated spiritual light of God's divine truth and divine love.
Which on paper sounds lovely and peaceful.
For a mind aligned with empathy, it is. But for people who have spent their entire lives completely wrapped up in self-love and worldly ego, this pure light is excruciating.
Because it exposes everything.
Exactly. Because it is absolute truth, it strips away every single one of their justifications, their lies, and their carefully constructed self-image. The text notes that the light of pure truth is physically and psychologically agonizing to a mind built on falsehood.
And the sources highlight a chilling psychological insight here. These individuals on the outside might have looked like perfectly moral, law-abiding citizens.
Oh, easily.
They might have even been devout, going to charity galas, serving on community boards, but internally the text says they harbored devils and satans.
They were entirely driven by self-interest, hiding behind a very polished mask of morality.
What's fascinating here is, wait, no, you usually say that, go ahead.
What's fascinating here is that when that mask is burned away by the light of absolute truth, they experience pure panic. To escape the overwhelming pain of reality, these individuals voluntarily cast themselves into the lake of fire.
Themselves, they jump in.
Yes. The text explicitly states that their own internal hellish nature drives them to flee from the light. They dive headfirst into the darkness of their own false justifications just to hide. Their own internal selfish desires become the fire that torments them.
It's entirely self-inflicted. It's like someone running into a burning building just to get out of the sunlight because the sun hurts their eyes.
That is a very grim but accurate way to picture it.
It's such a powerful metaphor for severe cognitive dissonance. When people are confronted with a truth that shatters their ego, they will bury themselves in toxic delusions just to avoid facing it.
Which naturally leads to the question of prevention. If the end goal of human existence is to avoid becoming trapped in that state, how does one change their internal nature?
Right.
And this brings us to the text's concept of spiritual rebirth, or regeneration.
Also referred to as RaJeongChae in some of these translated notes. The sources outline that the biggest roadblock to this spiritual rebirth isn't necessarily going out and committing terrible headline-grabbing crimes. The ultimate roadblock is the everyday human ego.
Specifically what the text calls self-love and self-intelligence.
Let's look at the celestial imagery the text uses to illustrate this barrier. In Revelation chapter 21, verse 23, it describes the new spiritual city as having no need of the sun or the moon to shine on it.
And remember, in this highly symbolic interpretation, symbols can have positive or negative meanings depending entirely on the context.
Right.
In a negative sense, the sun represents that toxic self-love we just discussed, and the moon represents natural faith that is born purely out of one's own self-intelligence.
So the moon is basically the patron saint of armchair experts on the internet.
Pretty much.
Or those tech bros who think they can solve complex theology or nuanced societal issues with a really good spreadsheet because they're just that smart.
That is a perfect modern equivalent. The sources issue a severe warning about relying solely on your own intellect to navigate morality.
Because it traps you.
When a person is convinced they already know everything, their ego creates what the text calls a thick cloud in their mind. When divine light or objective spiritual truth tries to enter, human beings immediately mix it with their own delusions, their own assumptions, and their own biases.
And that creates the cloud.
It forms these massive, thick clouds that entirely block out the light.
Think about algorithm-driven social media feeds for a second. For you listening right now, we literally build our own thick clouds of confirmation bias every single day.
We really do.
We curate our reality so that we only see information that tells us how right and smart we already are. And the text harshly criticizes those who seek truth or knowledge for worldly purposes.
Like gaining fame, acquiring wealth.
Or just showing off at a dinner party.
This is where the 18th century mysticism becomes incredibly practical for everyday life. The text emphasizes that if knowledge is not applied to your life through active love, which it defines as charity or genuine practical care for the neighbor, then that knowledge remains entirely dead.
The notes refer to that active love as ini.
Exactly. Without ini, it is just theoretical data stored on a mental hard drive. In fact, acquiring spiritual or moral knowledge without putting it into loving action eventually destroys the soul because it just feeds that intellectual ego and thickens those clouds.
It's the difference between memorizing a complex cookbook and actually cooking a meal for a hungry friend. If you just memorize the recipes so you can brag about your culinary knowledge online, the knowledge is dead.
Great analogy.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. If the lake of fire is the ultimate bad psychological state, the ultimate good state is represented by the New Jerusalem.
And spoiler alert, it is not a physical city floating down from the sky made of literal rocks and jewels.
The New Jerusalem is described as a new spiritual state of the broader church, and by extension, a new elevated spiritual state within the individual human mind.
It's essentially an architectural blueprint for a fully regenerated consciousness.
And the math involved in this blueprint is wild. The translated lecture notes spend a lot of time on the specific measurements from the text.
The geometry of it all.
Yeah. The city is 12,000 stadia, which for context is roughly 1,400 miles. That is the distance from New York to Denver.
It's massive.
And the length, width, and height are all perfectly equal. Plus, it has a wall that is 144 cubits thick. To a modern reader, this just sounds like ancient, confusing, and physically impossible architecture.
It is physically impossible, which is exactly the point. In this spiritual framework, numbers aren't about literal physical distance or geometry. They represent spiritual qualities.
Break that down for us.
The number 12 and its multiples like 144 represent completeness. It is the perfect holistic combination of all things related to truth and goodness.
So a 144-cubit wall means the mind's outer defenses are completely built out of perfect truth and goodness.
Protecting the vulnerable interior, yes. But the equal measurements of the city itself are even more profound.
The cube shape.
Right. The text states that the length of the city represents goodness and the width represents truth. The fact that the length and width are exactly equal means that within this elevated state of mind, goodness and truth are perfectly united.
I want to give a really concrete example of this because it blew my mind when I read it in the sources.
Go for it.
Imagine someone who posts online all day about saving the environment. They know all the facts, they lecture others. That is the truth, or the width of their city.
Okay.
But then, they secretly dump their own trash in the local river when no one is looking.
Oh, wow.
That is a total lack of goodness, which is the length. Their internal city is completely lopsided.
It's just a flat line of width.
Exactly. This text is saying a perfectly enlightened mind is a perfect cube. What you say, what you believe, and what you actually do are perfectly equal.
That is a brilliant way to visualize it. The height of the city then relates to the degree of purity from the ego and evil. So a mind where length, width, and height are equal is a mind that is totally unified.
It's acting purely out of love without any hidden selfish agendas or hypocrisies.
Which perfectly explains the visual material of the city. The text says the city is made of pure gold, like clear glass.
Which on a literal level is an oxymoron. Gold isn't transparent, you can't see through it.
But remember the symbolic language. Gold represents the ultimate, highest good of love. Clear glass represents transparency and purity of intention.
So the two together.
Transparent gold signifies that in this elevated spiritual state, a person's good actions are completely pure. There are no hidden, selfish motives muddying the waters.
You aren't being nice to a colleague just to get a promotion.
You aren't donating to a charity just to post the receipt on social media for clout.
The action is pure gold, and your internal motives are entirely transparent.
It is the ultimate alignment of internal intention and external action. Nothing is done for show.
That brings us to the final lush imagery from Revelation 22, which the sources spend a significant amount of time unpacking.
The river and the tree.
Yes, the river of the water of life and the tree of life.
The river is described as flowing directly from the highest throne. Spiritually, this river represents divine truth flowing from the purest source directly into the human mind.
Like a stream of reality.
A constant, refreshing stream of reality that hasn't been corrupted or filtered by human ego or societal biases.
And implanted right along that river is the tree of life. The sources point out a very specific detail here. This tree bears 12 fruits, yielding a new crop every single month.
Breaking down the symbolism again, the fruits of the tree are the actual tangible acts of love and charity.
That concept of active love in Ia that we discussed earlier.
Precisely. The fact that it yields fruit every single month means that a spiritually mature person is constantly producing good deeds.
It's an ongoing process.
But it goes deeper than just generic kindness. Because the fruit changes month by month, it means those actions are perfectly suited to whatever specific state of life they or their neighbors are currently experiencing.
It is adaptive empathy. You aren't just throwing money at every problem.
Sometimes the fruit is sitting and listening to a grieving friend.
Sometimes the fruit is standing up to an injustice. You are always providing exactly the kind of care the situation requires. But the detail that I think is incredibly relatable for you listening right now, dealing with the stress of modern life, is the leaves.
The leaves of the tree are for the healing of the nations.
Right. What exactly does a spiritual leaf do?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, think about the biological function of a leaf.
It processes sunlight.
Leaves process sunlight and air to feed the plant. In this spiritual framework, leaves represent rational truths. They are the practical cognitive tools we use to make sense of the world around us.
So they have a utility.
For the everyday person, these rational truths are used to process, filter, and heal the mind from false ideas, daily anxieties, and toxic thoughts.
The sources refer to these toxic thoughts as evils and falsities, constantly trying to invade the mind.
The leaves basically represent a psychological immune system. It is a daily practice of spiritual self-correction.
How does that look in practice?
When a selfish, jealous, or toxic thought enters your mind, you use these leaves, these rational, spiritually grounded truth, to process that thought. You recognize it as harmful, and you heal your mental state before that thought ever turns into a toxic action.
That is such a powerful tool for mental health, framed in ancient, deeply symbolic language.
And it really is.
Which leads us to the ultimate climax of the text, and a major focal point in our sources.
The true meaning of the second coming.
We have to spend some time here because it changes everything about how this text is usually read.
This is where the interpretation breaks most sharply with mainstream literalist views. The text repeatedly promises that Jesus is coming quickly or coming in the clouds.
And for centuries, people have literally looked up at the sky waiting for a physical event.
They have.
The translated notes literally contain a hilarious and kind of tragic anecdote from the lecturer. He talks about exercising in a public park and having a guy come up to him, aggressively preaching,
sweating and yelling,
literally spitting as he spoke, insisting that Jesus is going to physically ride in on actual water vapor in the atmosphere.
It perfectly illustrates why literalism is so tempting for the human ego. Waiting for a physical event in the sky requires absolutely no internal change.
It's passive. You just grab a lawn chair and wait.
But the spiritual interpretation demands intense psychological accountability. The clouds are not water vapor.
What are they?
The clouds represent the literal words of the biblical text itself, the confusing, sometimes dark literal history, and violent symbols that obscure the inner light of truth.
Wait, so the clouds blocking the light are the literal texts of the Bible itself?
That is the assertion of the Swedenborg framework. The coming in the clouds is the sudden opening and revealing of the deep spiritual meanings hidden inside those literal words.
It's like breaking through the cloud cover.
The second coming is not a physical event where the sky splits open and armies march across the earth. It is an internal event.
A shift in consciousness.
It is a profound psychological and spiritual awakening in the mind of the individual who finally aligns their life with truth and charity. The revelation happens inside you.
So what does this all mean? When we zoom out, when we look at this entire stack of sources, from the agonizing, self-inflicted lake of fire to the perfectly measured, transparent New Jerusalem, the ultimate lesson is remarkably consistent.
It all points in the same direction.
The determining factor of your spiritual and psychological state is never just what you know. It is entirely about whether your knowledge is united with genuine love and practical charity.
In our modern age of constant information overload, we are endlessly acquiring new data, new facts, new arguments.
Deep dives to listen to.
Exactly. But these texts, when interpreted through this psychological lens, offer a timeless warning against self-intelligence. They warn us of the immense danger of acquiring knowledge purely for the sake of our own ego.
Because if we learn just to win arguments on the internet or to feel intellectually superior to our peers, we're actively building our own lake of fire.
We are trapping ourselves in a state of isolated, suffocating self-love.
And the source material ends with a really stark warning from the very end of Revelation. It warns against adding to or taking away from the words of the prophecy.
The literal text says, if you add to it, plagues will be added to you. If you take away, your share of the tree of life is taken away.
The sources interpret this not as someone physically crossing out words on a page with a pen, but destroying the spiritual meaning by twisting truths to fit our own selfish desires.
The ego constantly wants to bend reality to serve itself, to add its own biases or take away truths that make it uncomfortable.
Before we go, consider this for yourself. If this 18th century framework is right, and the apocalypse isn't a future Hollywood movie, if the end of the world is actually happening right now, quietly, inside your own mind, every single time you choose between your ego and empathy, what does the end of your world look like today?
That is a profound question that requires absolute honesty with oneself.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the inner workings of the mind and the hidden symbols of revelation. We encourage you to keep questioning your assumptions, keep learning with an open heart, and above all, keep your skies clear.
Dear beloved brothers and sisters, all these profound interpretations are contained in the 20-volume series Arcana, Ecclesia. Written with my whole heart and soul over more than 10 years, this book is a great work in which, through the Lord's mercy, the spiritual secrets that were hidden throughout the 4 Gospels are revealed to the world for the first time. If you wish to gain a deeper understanding of the true meaning of the Bible and the spiritual world, I invite you to join this journey. Please share this YouTube channel with those who are not yet in the light of truth, and take part in our mission to proclaim the truth of the New Jerusalem. We will soon meet again with a new Arcana Ecclesia series. I pray that the Lord's blessing and peace will always be with you. Thank you.